Welcome to the Colon with the Boys podcast. We are your hosts, Ascend and Nathan.
What up?
This is episode 37, titled Evolution. We talked to the marketing specialist of North Star Games, Maggie, which is a great name for a rock song. We talked to her about their first game coming to the digital market, which is called Evolution.
It's pretty tricky.
What do you think? It's pretty tricky. Is that what you thought?
It's not tricky. I don't know how to explain it. It was fun. I think you just have to play it quite a bit until you get the hang of it. Because there was one point where my dino, I was getting my turn skipped. And it's probably because I wasn't really paying attention to the tutorial. But it's you already ate, because I had the little perks that allow you to start with one food or whatever, and then it was sharing it with the one next to it. And I never did the whole thing where you had 4 or 5 of the deals. I always did it with 2 people. And then the Carnos got thrown in there, and it was a little wild, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I feel like if you played it a lot more, the more you play it, the funner it'll get.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the full game, see what how difficult it can actually get.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, hopefully we also see other games from North Star in the future. I've looked at some of their board games and hope they come to the digital market as well. But other than that, sit back, relax, and steal food from the watering hole.
Yeah. I just wanna crack that door with that boys, yeah. No more baby mamas, no more kids to watch, cause I got babysitters. Now it's time for licking, come on, give it to me, cause it's my escape. Now it's time to annihilate, let my troubles all die away. I'm on a diet, Please do not try this, cause do not invite it. I'm dripping in go call the Midas. This night I was excited, it got me reignited. I've been waiting so long I can't fight it, but now I'm Mike Tyson inside, I'm on fire. It ain't nothing like a true brotherhood.
All right, so we have Maggie here with us from North Star Games. And so the title I have for you on your business card is marketing specialist.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, how much of that is included in do you have any hand in game development or anything with North Star Games?
So my full title technically is marketing and community manager. So my main hand in the game development is managing our online community. So all of our beta testers, I'm the point of contact for that. Any bugs they discover, anything like that, I'm usually the person that they report them to. So I have a pretty heavy hand in the reporting and the management, but not per se in the specific coding.
Gotcha. So if people don't like the game or something, that you're the one to yell at.
Yes, my go-to phrase is, if you've read an email from us, I'm probably the person who wrote it.
Nice.
Well, that applies here for sure. You're the one I spoke to. So awesome. So I actually got to test one of you guys' games at PAX West. And the game I tested was called Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was playing it, I was also wondering, does North Star do a lot of games? Now, obviously, I know the answer, but for our listeners, other than just what you guys presented at PAX West, what kind of other games do you guys, create?
Sure. So North Star Games started as a board game company in party games, and we're branching into strategy games with a few new games that we discovered at Essen and a couple of other things that we're introducing to the U.S. markets. So North Star started as a board game company. The digital team is the newest branch of the company and is currently working on Evolution, which is a digital port of the board game from North Star Games that has a full family of expansions and standalone games with it. And the digital version is the first digital game that North Star is producing, and it'll be coming out early next year.
Awesome.
And that's Evolution, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that so I got to test it out and I really enjoyed it. It reminded me I actually didn't know at the time that it was a board game or it came from a board game. I thought it was more of a trading card game. And I'm sure it will kind of become that way, especially if you guys plan to expand it and, make expansion packs for it and things like that. Is that a plan for Evolution?
So the plan for Evolution right now is that when the game comes out, it'll be the base Evolution board game that the fans know and love. And then after that, the expansions that are currently out in the board game universe, those are going to be the next steps with Evolution. Because unlike
Okay.
Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, where you buy more card packs and build your deck and expand your power through the money that you pay, this game is more about the way that you play your cards rather than the cards that you have.
Right. Yeah, I definitely noticed that because I went into it playing it like it was Hearthstone, and I was like, I'll get some good cards. And then I realized I was like, well, I'm getting a lot of the same cards, so I probably should be trying to think about this a little more.
That's actually
um,
something I really like about it is that
yeah,
it like I said before, it's all about how you play your cards rather than which cards you have. There's no one card in the deck that's more powerful than every other card. You really have to base your gameplay on what you're dealt. And so people like me, I have my one strategy that I tend to stick to, but sometimes depending on what cards I get in the first round, that strategy totally goes out the window and I have to totally think differently about how I'm building my dinosaurs.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So is
And
there just
sorry, go
are
ahead.
there just I'm trying to picture the game in my head. Um, with typical TCGs, people get to go into the game with a certain deck that they've built. This game is it everybody draws from the same lot of cards, and you have to play it that way, or do people still get to go into the game with a specific built deck that they have their own strategies for each deck?
The first version was correct. So it's actually not trading cards. It's a base card deck of 17 cards with a whole bunch of different combinations that you can do. So for people
Okay.
who have never played the game before, Evolution basically it's a turn-based strategy game. It's more about resource management and deck management that way than deck management through adding more powerful cards, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the premise of the game is that you're building species around the watering hole and you're competing against the other players and the other players' species. And you can do that by building herbivores that can eat more than everyone else and faster than everyone else, or you're building carnivores that can eat everyone else. And
Okay.
it gets to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about it is that every card has several applications of how you can use it because it may have like you read the card and you're like, oh, this is what it does, but just how the game mechanics are, you can use that for something else, like creating another dinosaur, for example.
For sure.
So it definitely there's a lot of strategy that must go into it. I know, obviously, for your guys' booth at PAX, I know you guys made it really easy because I didn't know anything about the game and I beat that level. But I know I talked to someone there and they were like, "Yeah, that's like easy mode." And I was like, "Yeah, oh sure." But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that, and obviously, that's why I wanted to get you guys on. So other than Evolution, do you guys plan? I mean, obviously, you're going to see how this goes, but in the future, do you plan to get some of your other board games on the digital market, like Steam or anything like that?
That's the ultimate goal for the department, I would say. But right now, the strategy is solely based in the Evolution family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Evolution's definitely the starting point for North Star. And then once we see how well that goes, we'll hopefully be continuing to port over some of our favorite titles.
Awesome. And what systems, like, do you plan to do anything on like Xbox Marketplace or Steam, or do you have your own client, or just from your website? How do you plan to distribute that?
So Evolution is going to be out for Steam, iOS, and Android. Right now, there are no plans to port it over to Xbox or PlayStation, but that could always be in the works. One really cool thing about the game when it comes out as a digital version is that the multiplayer function is fully cross-platform. So if you're playing on
Nice.
Steam and your friend's playing on iOS and your mom's playing on an Android tablet, everybody can play together.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
is it a PvP oriented game? Like, are you always facing another player, or is it a team based facing a computer, or can it be either one? Or
PvP is more of the focus, but there is also single player mode against the AI. There's going to be campaign strategy style, like different scenarios that you can go through when the game comes out. And so you can basically plan it however you want to plan it, that it can be a single player game or it can be multiplayer from 2 to 4 players, depending on how you want to set it up.
nice.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. So right now, did you guys have that set up? Actually, I'm not. I didn't look into it too much, but did you guys have that set up
At
where you
PAX.
could play? Yeah, like play multiplayer with other people, or did you?
We
Was
didn't
it
have
just
internet at PAX, unfortunately, so no, we didn't have that set up. We just had our super cool kiosks where people were playing single player against the AI. And I will tell you, it was the easy AI, so that was
Yeah,
probably a bit
I
of
don't feel
confusion for
special,
you.
dude.
I'm pretty sure I still lost a round, so that just tells you how bad I was at it at first.
Everybody's
bad
pretty
at video
terrible at the
games,
game
dude.
when they first start out, but then I feel like once you get into it, once you start learning the cards and understanding how they all work, it becomes really, really fun.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as the AI like turned into a carnivore and started eating mine, I was like, "Whoa, what the hell? Why is it doing this?" Um, well, that's awesome. So, a few weeks ago, we actually had a different indie game developer from the sixth floor at PAX. Now, I don't remember. I don't know how many conventions you guys go to, so I'm not sure if you even remember PAX at this point. But uh, um, so you guys were at the indie mega booth,
hmm
and that's one thing that I really he didn't know the answer to it, so I kind of want to ask you as well.
For sure.
What's the biggest difference between the indie mega booth and like being on the sixth floor? Because that's also like an indie floor.
Yes, so the sixth floor, from what I understand, I wasn't actually there last year, but last year, I know the sixth floor doesn't get quite as much traffic. It's not a dead zone. I was actually able to run up there and go explore for a bit during PAX this year, so there was definitely solid crowds and everything. But one thing that's fantastic about the Indie Mega booth is you're not just one booth trying to compete with every other booth around you. The Indie Mega booth is almost this giant family of 76 different game studios representing 76 different games, and everybody runs around trying everybody else's games. And the nice thing about being in the indie mega booth is that since it's all of these different indie studios in one place, the draw of that area is more the draw of the indie collection itself rather than one specific game. So if there's traffic in the indie mega booth, you've got traffic at your booth no matter what, because everybody's walking around the indie mega booth. It's set up in a really nice way that people can just bebop from one booth to the next, try out a bunch of demos in the space of an hour instead of standing in line for 2 hours to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, that is true. I did like that. I definitely like is that something that you have to um have a certain amount of draw from, or I'm guessing it's just like a money thing. It probably costs more to do the indie mega booth, just because I definitely feel as from a marketing standpoint it would be the way to go.
Yeah, so Indie Mega Booth, there's an application system. It's kind of like a convention within the convention, I would say. You're not, when you apply for Indie Mega Booth, you're not only applying for PAX, you're applying specifically to be part of the Indie Mega Booth, and it's set up by a absolutely incredible group of people who do really, really awesome work. I can't remember the founder's name off the top of my head, but she's super nice, and this is her life's work, is highlighting indie games at festivals, and they go to different conventions around the country. I think they go to PAX East and PAX West and a couple of other conventions throughout the year, and basically their whole thing is that they're highlighting the studios that can't really spend the big bucks the way that Valve and Ubisoft and everything
Right.
can spend these crazy amounts of money with these giant displays and everything and 15 different stations to play games, but instead you get this wonderful network of indie gamers and indie game studios all working together at the same convention. And it's a really, really fun experience. I had an absolute blast at PAX this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. It was actually my first convention. I don't really,
Really?
yeah, I had never really gone to conventions, so I was so curious about how everything worked. You know, the indie mega booth, I was just looking at it like, well, this is the place to be as an indie game developer.
Right
Like,
there.
you know, it's right smack dab in the middle of like AMD, and
Hmm.
Intel was right by there. It was just all right by really good stuff. So I was like, this is the place to be.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
great spot. And it was really cool too because besides the indie game video game studios, there were also a few tabletop companies that were showing off prototypes of games. There was a whole section for that. There was the mini booth, which was part of the indie mega booth, where instead of having the game companies have a full booth for the full convention, they would have one game tower, and it would be a certain group of people on Saturday and a certain group of people on Sunday, et cetera, swapping out and basically just sharing the space to get as much attention as possible to every game possible. It was really neat.
yeah, yeah, and then you have like Valve, which went all out on their little setup with their game artifact or whatever. I don't know if you saw that at all,
Yeah, for sure.
but it was just insane. That'd be awesome to have as an indie game developer, but
Hmm. A little
what can you
expensive,
hope
So,
for?
just a little bit.
so you're the community
Hmm.
manager, also do marketing. So do you go to all the conventions that North Star goes to? Like, are you the one that travels from place to place? Do you get to travel a
Yep.
lot?
As of July, that's my role. I went to Gen Con this year. I went to PAX West. Right after that, I went to Washington in Washington D.C. And then
Hmm.
in October, I'm going to Congress of Gamers, which is in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And then after that, there's PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia and PAX South in Texas. It's a whole lot of traveling.
That sounds like fun.
It is. It's
PAX
exhausting, but it's fun.
PAX Unplugged, is that just PAX East?
No, PAX East and PAX Unplugged are two different conferences. PAX East is the one that's in Boston. PAX
Hmm.
Unplugged is more
Oh,
to
okay,
focus on board games than actual video games.
gotcha.
That's kind of where the name Unplugged comes from. But since North Star is both board
Ah,
games and digital board games, it's a great place for us to go.
I didn't catch that. The
Yeah,
unplugged part makes sense.
yeah, yeah. Because I know before they started calling them like West, South, East, they used to have actual names. Like PAX West used to be called PAX Prime.
Hmm.
So I was wondering if like that was East's like name beforehand, because I can't off the top of my head remember what it used to be called. But so yeah, that's pretty awesome. Next year, actually, I think we plan to uh go to South. I'm pretty sure
You
because
plan on
I'm
going to
based out of
both, right?
Seattle. Well, yeah, next year we're definitely going to West again,
Hmm.
but also South, because we'll be near that area, and that's in San Antonio, I believe,
Hmm. In January.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll
at least it'll
definitely
be
hit
Um,
that
cold.
one.
I don't like going to Texas in the summertime. It gets unbearably hot down there. Like I've never seen the road melt before, except for when I was in Texas. And that's like the one thing I only
Melt.
remember from being in Texas is the asphalt on the road was literally melting in front of you. I was like, this is insane. I don't know why people want to live there. It's so hot. Screw that.
Just stay inside like a hermit
I mean, I do that
with air
where I'm
conditioning.
at now, but that's just worse.
So yeah, so PAX South, we plan to go to that. PAX West, is that something that's on your guys' list for next year already, or is that something you'll know, you know, in the coming months?
It's not confirmed yet since we've got to go through all of the application processes and stuff like that. But in general, we plan to go to all of the major PAX events, so PAX South, PAX West, PAX Unplugged, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the big
Hmm.
ones. We also go to Gen Con every year, which is in Indianapolis. That's more focused on board games. But since we're a digital board game, we've got a ton of traction there this year. Gen Con was
Nice.
really fun.
So are you guys still
Nice.
in the beta phase? Like, or do you have the game fully released?
We're still in closed beta right now. Our beta testers are the folks who backed us on Kickstarter, and we were also selling Steam keys at conventions. That was the
Hmm.
only way to get in on it. And the game is coming out early next year. And at that point, all of our beta testers get to keep their access, and all of our new people who buy the game get to jump in on it for the first time, and we're really, really looking forward to that.
So if people wanted to get beta access, is there, like, I know the Kickstarter is probably closed at this point. Are you guys still selling keys or ways for people to get beta access to test it?
We sell the keys at conventions. Unfortunately, right now we don't have a way for people to get in on the test virtually. We're working on that. We're hoping to get something out there to get some more people in on the beta test, but obviously that's not something I can promise yet.
Right.
But we are definitely working on it.
Cool. Well, Ascend, why didn't you buy a Steam key? Because I would have liked to have played this game.
I didn't know they had.
Hello? Pay attention, dude. Come on now.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone was having really like Steam key giveaways or anything. I thought it was something that I could get from their websites or things like that. But I guess it is getting it up virtually. That's probably a hassle and a half to do comparatively to just bringing them to the con.
Yeah, I did notice that we were one of the only booths in the Indie Mega booth that actually had something to like sell, like something for people to actually get in on besides just liking on social media or wish listing on Steam, which did give us a nice little leg up that there was actually something we could give to people.
Yeah. Like I know one of the booths had like little cards with their characters on it, like an actual trading card, something like that. But I didn't know anything about actual Steam key giveaways and things like that.
Way to go, dude.
I know. I screwed up.
Yeah, that's what I have to go to these things for. Keep you in line, dude.
Oh,
Come
wow. So right now the planned release for the game you said was beginning of next year?
We have not announced the official release date yet, so I can't speak to that specifically, but I can say early 2019.
It'll be February 2nd. No, I'm just kidding. So that's pretty awesome. So we have we're on a network. This podcast is on the APM network, and we have a lot of streamers and things like that. So I'll see what I can do about getting us to play that on stream and
that would be awesome.
Get it out there.
Right now, at this time, we do actually have a streaming embargo on for beta testers, just because there's a lot of features that aren't launch ready. That's why it's in a beta test. But we're getting closer to the point where we can lift that streaming embargo, and we're really, really excited about getting to that point where we can reach out to streamers and have just build our online community even more and welcome a whole new group of people in.
Yeah, that's the way to go with streaming. I know as a marketing director, that's probably something you're really excited about, like for the future of North Star, bringing evolution to the digital market, and then whatever else you guys bring, just being able to have that option of giving it to streamers and watching your game being played on stream is just a whole new experience for game developers at this point.
For sure. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, you'd be excited until you get the aids of Twitch chat emailing you every day. Ugh. I feel bad for you. Like I've only ever beta tested a Blizzard game, World of Warcraft, and like I've read all the blue posts and stuff coming from that game, have people that are beta testing, and the thing I see all the time is the game developers are like, be specific in your bug reports or whatever else. Don't just say your game sucks, I hate this, your game is trash, please fix this. They're like, you have to specifically tell us, what were you doing when this happened? We need specifics of your character, or like, I can only imagine the emails that you get as far as beta bugs go.
It's pretty fun. I'll put it that way.
Pretty fun.
I would be that guy.
We have a fantastic online community. Like, really, we do. We have an awesome group of beta testers. We have a really fun Discord where everybody gets in and trash talks each other during the developer hours and stuff like that. So I really do enjoy working with our online community. That part for me is genuinely fun. But there for every 4 or 5 emails we get that are like beautifully written out with detailed descriptions and screenshots, and even like some people will do video captures of the bugs they're experiencing and like send us these gorgeous error reports. And then every once in a while we'll get like the game crashed, and that's it.
The
So
game
it's like,
crashed.
okay.
Was it your computer? Like, did your computer blue screen? What's going
exactly.
on? Yeah, that's I don't know. I like for every. It's just like you said. For every like 10 really good comments you get on something, that one is the one you focus on, and it's the one that wrecks your life. Just it sucks, or it just crashed, or you suck at your job, or whatever they want to say.
There's a saying in video game marketing that I learned recently from a panel that I went to at Gen Con that was something like 90% of your fans are going to play the game and literally never talk to you. 9% of your fans are going to play the game and tell you it rocks. And then 1% of your fans are going to play the game, get under your skin just because they can, and they're going to be louder than the other 99% put together.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if it was
sucks.
only 1%, though. I feel like that is probably a little bit higher. I don't know. Just in this day and age, the trolls have gotten so bad that it's probably 80% will never talk to you. 1% will tell you your game is good, and the remaining 19% are going to tell you how bad you are at game development.
I don't think that's true, man. I really do feel that it's that same 1%. They're just louder
Maybe that's what it
about.
is.
If someone's mad about something, they will definitely be loud about it. So, like, think of it your way. If you beta test a game and you really, really enjoy it, do you email that marketing specialist or that person and say how good their game is? No. But if there's something wrong, you're going to be like, hey, this thing's wrong with it. That's exactly.
No, I'm not a good beta tester because I don't do that either. Like, if the game is good, you'll never hear from me because it's good. I don't have any reason to talk to you. And if the game is bad to the point to where I feel like I need to tell you your life sucks, like, I'm not going to play the game, so I'm not going to tell you, I guess. I don't know. I don't like to be a pain in the ass. Like, just if you don't like the game, just go on, play something else. You don't have to be a douche about it.
Yeah, luckily we haven't had any of those so far, at least in the time that I've been doing community management work. Like I said before, our online community totally rocks. I really enjoy working with all of our fans.
That's good. Props to the North Star online community. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, I hope so. What's nice is that we have this big fan base coming over from the cardboard side, that people have been playing Evolution as a board game, and Evolution, all of the expansions and the sister game and everything, that people have been playing that for so long, and they're so excited for the digital version to come out so that they can like play with their friends when they can't be playing across the table. Because that's actually something that's just so cool about this game is once we get custom multiplayer rolled out, you can set up a game with your gaming group that you had in college that everybody's spread across the country now, but you can all still play games together with digital board games. That's honestly something that makes me really excited about being in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you did you grow up playing board games, or did you play like the Nintendo Entertainment System or anything like that? Like what were you doing growing up?
I was mainly into like MMORPGs. That was kind of my big gaming stuff, but board games and like co-op games and stuff like that, that's always been my cup of tea too.
So I can assume you've played World of Warcraft before.
I have, yes. But my story I always tell with World of Warcraft is that I never really got what the fuss was about, and my brother, who was always super into World of Warcraft, finally got me to sit down and start like a starter character and play for a little bit. And I like ran around, I did a couple of quests, I played for like 20 minutes or so and looked up at the clock and it had been 4.5 hours. And I was like, okay, yeah. I'm not allowed to play this game anymore.
That's funny. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
What MMORPGs do you play, or did you play? Do you even play games anymore?
Oh, I play tons of games. I'm more into the regular RPGs now that like my soul belongs to BioWare. I am a huge Dragon Age fan. But
nice.
In like middle school and high school, my big thing was Mabinogi. If you guys have heard of that one, the Nexon game.
Nope.
Yes.
Sure haven't.
I have heard of it, but I don't know how it plays.
Yeah, it's basically World of Warcraft light. That you don't have to spend as much money, and the story was all based on the Irish mythology, and the animation was like not super fantastic, but the community was incredible, and all of the quests were super fun, and it didn't feel as grindy as most MMOs do.
Hmm.
So that was definitely where I spent most
What
of
was
my
it
time.
called?
Mabinogi, Mabinogi. It's still around and it's still super popular, but it's on like their seasons are called generations, and I started playing it like generation 6, and they're on like generation 24 now or something crazy like that.
Oh, so it's been a
So
while. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
it's been
Yeah.
a while.
One MMO that I always hoped would get somewhere but never did, and it's actually closed down now, is City of Heroes. Have you ever played that?
Didn't play it, did hear about it.
Yeah, it's pretty much a superhero MMO where you are very customizable with your powers and things like that, and you actually fight crime.
It was the dumbest thing I've ever played in my entire life. Like, I don't know how you found that game attractive.
I
Like,
didn't.
That was
That's
so
the
dumb.
thing. That's why it closed down. It wasn't very good. I'm just saying, if it's done well, that would be an awesome MMO.
Meh.
Wow.
I don't know.
Get out of town.
All right. See you guys later. Nice podcast. We'll catch you later.
Get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. But that's pretty cool. So, playing board games, what kind of board games did you grow up playing? Was it like table flipping Monopoly?
I mean, there's always got to be some table flipping Monopoly. I feel like
Yeah.
you can't be a gamer without like one or two really good table flips. But I would say nowadays my friend group's more into like the strategy based stuff, like Catan, and we just started playing this game Carcassonne, which is apparently like super famous, but I literally only heard of it like 3 weeks ago.
I've never heard of it, so there you go.
Yeah, it's a tile building game where you're building a giant map of the countryside and laying out meeples and taking over the world. Basically, it's very fun.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love Catan, by the way, or Catan.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it, so
I
don't
say
know.
it both ways. It changes depending on what state I'm in and who I'm talking to.
Yeah,
Catan is how I've
Yeah,
always said
Catan.
it. Settlers of Catan.
but I
When
love
I'm
that game
from Oklahoma.
especially the Cities and Knights expansion made that game really good.
For sure.
There's so many expansions.
I think there's probably like 6 or something at this point.
I honestly don't know if the Barbarian is an expansion or part of the original game because I've just always played with the Barbarian in, but that is the most frustrating and great game mechanic ever. Of just
Is that where like every few turns or whatever the barbarians come?
yeah, I think it's every time you roll a 7 or something like that, the Barbarian gets closer and you have to build up your knights to defend your cities, and if you don't have enough knights, your cities die, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's the Cities and Knights expansion, and that's actually the only one I've really ever played, and so I'm used to the game as is like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
same
seems
here.
pretty simple if that mechanic wasn't in the game.
Mhm.
But so then what kind of segueing away from that to back to North Star. So Evolution is going to be your first digital game. What
Mhm.
other kind of games do you guys have? Like, what are some of the other games you guys offer that aren't digital, or they're just on your website as board games?
Yeah, so one that I am super excited about and can't shut up about is called Warsaw City of Ruins. It's a Polish game that I believe our cardboard team found it at Essen, but I'm not totally sure about that. Either way, we're the first people to bring it to the US. And basically, it's a district building game. So you're building a district within the city of Warsaw. And the premise of the game is that Warsaw itself, through history, has been ransacked and destroyed so many times, and just
Yeah.
history keeps building layers on top of it. So basically, you're placing tiles and building city districts and things, but you can keep building on top of things. And wars happen, and you have to remove tiles, and other things happen, and special tiles come into play. And it's basically you're just managing all of your resources and building your points and building your city and just trying to win against everyone else. And I'm a huge history nerd, so for me, I have a lot of
Same.
fun with seeing like actual pieces of Polish history come into the game. But I know that's a super nerdy thing to say.
No, absolutely. Like I really enjoy history as well, and that sounds like a lot of fun actually.
It's really fun. That one I think is available on our website now. I know it was at the last convention I went to, but they ran out of it very, very fast because people were play testing it at our booth and then running like directly to the games vendor to just go buy it. And I think they only brought 8 copies and they were gone like the morning of the first day.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
it's so much fun. But I
Yeah,
think
it is. It is
North
on the
Star is
website.
probably better known for their party games. So have you guys heard about Happy Salmon?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Happy
I don't
Salmon.
like.
I like the name though.
Yeah, I'm like I play board games like once a year, and it's
Okay.
usually something like Catan. So I'm not a
Gotcha.
big board game guy.
You're probably gonna hate this game then, but it's one of my favorites, and the premise is just fantastic. So basically, everybody stands in a circle. It's not a board game. I should say that it's very much a
Okay.
party game. Everybody stands in a circle with a certain number of cards, and there are 4 different actions you can do. There's fist bump, high five, switcheroo, and happy salmon. And basically you're trying to find people who have the same card that you have and do the action together so that you can throw your card on the floor very dramatically and move on to the next one. And so basically it's just a ton of screaming, and one game lasts about 90 seconds. And when we were at Washington a couple of weekends ago, we were all really, really tired on the second day. So our intern actually had the brilliant idea to start a staff game of Happy Salmon. So there was 4 of us playing Happy Salmon. And then after that game was over, there were 6 of us playing Happy Salmon. And then suddenly we had an entire game of 12 people screaming at each other and like jumping across the space to try to do the switcheroo and doing the crazy salmon handshake and everything. And it's just absolute insanity and really funny.
That sounds pretty fun.
I
Yeah.
see team building exercises at work coming up, dude. I'm gonna start making people play Happy Salmon at work on break.
A full round of it takes at max 2.5 minutes.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
blast. It's an absolute blast. And
Yeah,
then
just make 'em do it.
there's a new game that we just put out with Target that is called Dude and More Dude, and it's a similar thing where everybody has cards and you're trying to find matches of the cards, but on each card is just the word dude written out in a bunch of different ways. So everybody's saying dude in different voices and different characters, trying to find somebody who's saying it the same way that you are. And so in regular dude is just spelled differently, a bunch of different ways on every card. And then in More Dude, there's different like characters on the cards. So you can be saying dude as like a pizza man, or you can be saying dude as a ghost or a cowboy or a robot. And it's another one where it's just a whole lot of yelling and stupidity, and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds hilarious.
Damn.
You know, one thing I remember about board games when I was younger is there was a whole aisle at your local Walmart or Target or wherever you were at. Like there was a whole aisle dedicated to tabletop and things, board games, your card games. I don't see those anymore. So I don't know if it's the fact that I've gotten older and I just stopped playing them because it was just a thing we did when we were kids. We went on, camping or vacation or whatever. But I haven't ever thought to play them or buy them because I don't see them anymore. I don't know if that's just in my part of the country that they don't have aisles dedicated to board games, or if they just don't sell them in the stores
I feel
anymore.
like a lot of stores nowadays have moved that section. Instead of being kind of like away from the kids section, they're now in the kids section. That I know specifically Target, all of the board games, even the hardcore strategy games, are at the back of the kids section behind all the Transformers toys. So you do kind of have to get past.
Yeah,
that would make
baby
sense.
dolls and
Yeah,
stuff to find the good games.
I'm pretty sure
because I don't have kids, so I don't go to the kids section.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still there. They just like from what I remember last time I went and saw them, it's like a very small section at this point. It's almost like a little booth by itself. It's not a whole aisle anymore. And it's usually mixed in with a lot of, like party games and things like that. There isn't just a section just for board games, and then you walk a little bit more and it's like Rubik's cubes and things like that. They're basically all put into one, so there's very little room to actually, like, as an indie company, to get your board game out there.
For sure. We're really lucky to be in Maryland because Maryland has a really strong community of family-run game stores. There's actually one that we work with a lot that's literally called the Family Game Store. And so that's something that's really nice that we have here that I actually haven't seen in other places. Like I grew up in Florida, so this business model is totally unfamiliar to me. But basically, they have like their ground floor is a typical game shop with tons and tons and tons of board games and tabletop RPGs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then upstairs, they have all of these gaming tables set up for people to either test stuff before they buy it, or they build like gaming groups that meet once a week to play different games and stuff like that. So they have this whole upstairs section that's just for playing games, and then the downstairs section is just for buying games. And that's really nice because you don't really see that kind of business model around anymore.
Yeah, I don't think they have any of those where I live. I think they used to, but I want to say they closed it. I never been, but I mean, I never really thought to go to a gaming store and hang out and play video games because, like, I was a closet nerd, so I tried to hide that part. So I didn't go out, experience that. But we have you on. We've had a couple other board game developers and indie game developers, and I feel like I've missed out on a lot of that because I think it would be fun to go sit down at a store that does tabletop and just sit down with random people and play board
For sure.
games.
I think I'm really lucky in that I grew up with my older brother. He's 13 years older than me and is basically the polar opposite of a closet nerd. Everything he does is nerddom to the max. So that he's the person who introduced me to going to conventions, and he introduced me to anime and video games and board games and all kinds of stuff. So I've kind of always had that outlet, but I know that's not really normal in this day and age, which kind of makes me
Right.
sad
Sad.
because I've
Yeah.
gotten some really cool stuff from him.
Well, I think just kind of where we're heading as like gamers is everything is going digital. I mean, that's obviously where
Exactly.
North Star is taking their games. And like, for example, for me, I've been hanging out with some of our streamers lately, and I've been playing a lot of Jackbox Party Pack. Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, I love Jackbox.
Yeah, the Jackbox games. Like, I love stuff like that, and it's literally a board game. It's just you get to play it online, and you don't have to have the pieces. Especially with something like Jackbox, like Quiplash, for example, where you have to write something down on a card. That would be a pain and a half
Right.
to do physically in a physical board game. So I think that's definitely the next step for a lot of developers for board games,
I
is to
agree.
kind of take their stuff to the Steam marketplace and make it friendly, to play online against other people. So
Yeah, there's also a huge market that's been established and is continuing to establish itself in mobile games. That's one of the biggest
yeah,
reasons that we're going into iOS and Android with Evolution is just this giant market of people who want to play games like this in app form. That I think there's a nice accessibility thing going on with digital board games right now, where especially for like people with disabilities, or if you've got mobility issues or anything like that, you can take a game with all of these tiny pieces that may be difficult to work with, and you turn it into a
hmm
digital mode, and suddenly that opens up all of these different opportunities to actually still enjoy play, and that kind of thing is incredibly appealing to the digital market, I would say.
oh yeah, like I can guarantee you that if they made an accessible like digital phone version of Catan, I would play it in my free time, just like, you know, just play when I can.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, it's just the accessibility of board games that is why I usually don't play them, especially right now. Like, I live in a different state from Nathan now. So, like, when are we going to be able to
That's
play
your
a
fault.
board game? Like, I think last time we played anything close to a board game was Cards Against Humanity, and it was like a year and a half ago or something.
It's been a long time.
So that
Yeah,
we
so
actually did a big panel about this exact topic at PAX West, about bringing digital game, or excuse me, bringing cardboard games into the digital era. And we spent probably a solid 15 minutes discussing just the differences that digital board games have brought to gaming communities. That, like, the example I
yeah.
gave before was talking about if you had this awesome gaming group in college and you all met up once a week in somebody's dorm room to play games, but then now you're all working jobs across the country, how can you continue to have this friendship and these games and everything together? And digital board games are turning into the solution for that problem. that you brought up Jackbox before, and we have friends who live in Atlanta and another friend who's in Nevada now, and we have the ability to set up a Jackbox game using my personal my PC to host the game, and then we set up Skype on a different laptop and point it at the screen, and then everybody's playing together. And just the fact
That's
that
so
you're
cool.
able to do that with people who are across the country in different time zones, but you're all still playing the same game together is just so cool to me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I agree. Segue away from this for just a second.
Mhm.
You said you watched anime earlier, and now I have to ask what your favorite anime is.
Oh God, here we go.
What was the question?
The weeb.
What your favorite anime is?
Escaflowne, hands down.
I've never even heard of that.
It's like old 90s
Uh-oh.
anime, giant mechs and cool stuff like that. If you haven't watched it,
Well-
if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's a limited series. It's only like 20 episodes or so, but basically this chick goes through a magical portal and ends up in a different magical land, and she can like see the future and stuff, and there's a giant robot that can turn into a dragon, and it's basically everything you
Whoa.
want out of a 90s anime.
Definitely sounds like an anime plot.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah. They made it into a really, really terrible live action movie that pretty much nobody talks about.
No, don't you hate that?
Yeah.
God.
That's good. I'm gonna have to have you spell that after we're done here, but my favorite also has to do with mechs, but it's Code Geass.
Oh yeah, that's my brother's favorite.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm just gonna have to say Naruto because that's the only one I've ever watched. So sorry, but that's all I've got for that one. I don't know. I don't know. Sure. I don't know.
How
Like I
dare
say,
you.
I tell people that all the time. They're like, "Oh, you watch anime?" I'm like, "Hi, I don't watch anime. I watch Naruto." And they're like, "Ah, you fucking weep." Up to see, there we go. I just dropped the F bomb.
In this context, is
but-
allowed.
Yeah, I guess talking about Naruto, it was a really good show, but I get
think it
made
was
fun of for it.
growing up, and the more I've kind of looked into different animes, it kind of starts to fall off when you realize how, at times, how much they really stretch things out. I hate the whole, like, what does it have, like 700 episodes or something to finish it off?
It's got a lot.
One Piece
Yeah.
is on
I
like
definitely-
episode 962 or something like that.
Yeah, I like the premise of One Piece, but there's no way I'm watching that many episodes. I'm sorry. But anyway, had to go on that tangent to ask that. But yeah, so I have been playing a lot of Jackbox lately, and I definitely think even more so with Jackbox, there's a lot of interaction with the host or the person that's hosting, especially with streaming. It's great for streaming.
Mhm.
So like, if I were to kind of talk anyone into making a digital game, I would definitely, and they're starting from scratch, I would definitely recommend they start with the mindset of, let's make this for streaming, because that's such a great marketing tool these days.
Yeah, I
Is if it's a streamable game like Fortnite or something, it's gonna get out there and it's gonna do really well. So
Yeah, one thing that, this is kind of tangential from that, but it does relate. One thing that made the board game so popular of Evolution is that when it was in development, they worked with a nature artist whose name is Catherine Hamilton, and she did all original watercolor illustrations for the board game. And then now that we're porting it into digital, we've kept those watercolor illustrations, and some of them we've actually animated for certain card actions. So we've
Mhm.
got these just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful illustrations and animations that all work hand in hand and turn into this just a genuinely nice experience for streaming. And I feel like
yeah,
for some streamers who typically play first-person shooters and stuff like that, it could be a nice break to just look at something pretty and do something strategy-based instead of point-and-click shooting.
yeah, that is something I really
Well,
appreciated about Evolution. Is it was very different. Like I didn't go into it and it was just this overly cartoony, card game. So I really enjoyed the art of it, and it definitely gave a different feel to the game altogether. So
Yeah, there's one game feature that I actually didn't notice it for like the first 2 months that I was playing the game, but when I did notice it, it totally blew my mind. So I love talking about it. Basically, one function of the game is that there's food in the watering hole, and sometimes there's a lot of food in the watering hole, and sometimes there's no food in the watering hole, et cetera, et cetera. And our art director actually introduced a function that when there's no food in the watering hole, the land around all of the player species is totally barren and brown and lifeless. And then when there's tons of food in the watering hole, actual plants start growing and they have like dynamic environments that respond to the way the game is playing. And you get these beautiful flowers and beautiful plants. And as we're starting to branch into different biomes and things like that, it like changes depending on where you're playing. And that to me is just like, that's just candy. That's so cool.
yeah, especially with the future of evolution as it evolves. um, it would definitely be really cool, like to see a lot of like weather conditions and things like that take into effect and just make it even bigger as a game. That would be awesome. But I'm really looking forward to the digital version of it. I'll definitely be picking that up.
Good. We're excited about it too.
So basically, before we segue into our random thought of the day, from listening to the podcast, you talk about the game. What I'm getting is it's basically Ark in a board game form on the internet.
Say
if
again,
that makes
I'm
sense.
sorry, my dog barked.
Oh, it's fine. Ark Survival Evolved. It's a survival PC game, but it's dinosaurs, right?
I think I've heard of that. But I haven't actually played it, so I can't really comment.
No, it's not, Nathan. Basically, how you have to think of it is like there's several different. I don't know if it changes the species depending on the game map you're playing on or like which game, but basically you have these cards that do different things, and you can either use it for the effect that it says on the card, or you can just basically throw away the card and instead like get a new species. So you get a new dinosaur, and you basically want as many dinosaurs. Well, not necessarily. This is just a strategic thing, but you kind of want dinosaurs that take up all the food in the watering or like the water hole for your team, so that you're getting more points.
That was a really good
resource management.
And then there's you upgrade your dinos to do different things. Like for example, one of the little upgrades is your dino eats 2 things out of the watering hole instead of just 1, so that's 2 points instead of 1. So like there's little things like that just give you an advantage against your opponent. But I thought it was really interesting. I saw that it was up to 6 players.
Right. So the
right?
board game is up to 6 players. The digital game is up to 4 players.
Okay, so that's one thing that I don't know how it's going to work, because I think the demo. I don't remember if there was a 3rd player. There might have been at one point in the demo, but it was just mostly one-on-one
play.
Yeah. So that'll be really interesting once more and more people go in there. But
I'm excited. I want to play.
I'd be glad to send you guys some Steam keys after this.
Oh,
hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
And then when that embargo goes off, I will definitely try to get it on stream.
For sure.
Our random question, we always kind of end the show with a random question of the day, and it's not really that random because it has to do kind of with what we're talking about. But so knowing your part in the indie game industry and in marketing and everything you've been involved in with North Star, if there are any listeners that kind of want to pursue game development and like indie game development, starting their own game, whether it's board games, whether it's, the highest level of like graphics and things like that, would you recommend it? And if so, like what are some things that, sorry, this is a really long question, but
God, you're getting deep down, dude.
So like, first of all, let's just start with what would you recommend it in
Would
general?
I recommend getting into the industry?
Yeah, like if someone, like one person by themselves, let's say it's just me, and I want to start a new game, have no idea how to do it, should I pursue it, or is is it one of those things where like 95% of people just don't get anywhere
Oh, you
with it?
should definitely pursue it. There's our game engine that we're using is called Unity, and Unity is actually totally free if you're using it as a hobbyist. So they have all of these different online resources that you can use that as soon as you download the program, it takes you through a bunch of different tutorials of how Unity works and like the basics of game programming. And then they have an
Hmm.
incredible online resource of instructional videos, instructional articles, different resources you can download and put into your own Unity projects and things like that. I feel like the barriers to entry for game development has gone way, way, way down. That just anybody with a computer can start learning game development. And it's definitely not easy. It's incredibly, incredibly difficult. But if it's something that you're passionate about and something that you really, really want to do, there are ways to learn it and get in the doors.
Yeah. Yeah, I did 3 years in programming, so I'm definitely familiar with Unity. But Nathan probably doesn't know what Unity is.
I have no idea what you just said, so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to learn, though.
I can give you the elevator pitch of Unity. It's a game design platform where basically you can use it as you can do your own programming in it, which is what we're doing, or you can use Unity resources and things, which are basically pre-programmed game functions that you can. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them you can just download, and you can insert them directly into your Unity projects. So, like if you have a really great idea for a side-scrolling platformer, but you don't have the programming chops to make it yourself, you can download Unity resources and basically like plug and chug build your own platformer through Unity resources.
Yeah, that's too much for me. Like, I'm not even gonna attempt to act like I could get on there and do something. Like, there's probably people out there that could get on there and make a game. I'd get on there, open up the tab, and be like,
Like I said, not easy, but
Yep.
definitely the barriers to entry are a lot
Yep.
lower than they used to be.
Good.
Okay, so to add on to the random question, so you would recommend it, and at that point, how difficult do you think it is to kind of, let's say you do create a game and it's a average game, let's just say that, and like how is the marketing section of that? Is it hard to market your game? Does it take a lot of money to do something like that? Like what if someone's broke? Are they still able to compete?
I would say yes, you're still able to compete. Definitely not having a big budget does make it harder, but it doesn't make it impossible. That's why
Hmm.
organizations like Indie Mega Booth and stuff like that exist, is to help people who, or either individuals or indie game studios that don't have these giant marketing budgets like Valve does, that you can still get out there. It's definitely tough. The marketing uh, is not the easiest thing in the world in game development, I would say. But things like social
Hmm.
media management and web development and stuff like that, all of that's just time, really. That like the skills are out there. Uh, most analytics are free to use at this point, like Google Analytics and uh, AdWords, I believe, is free, and all of your Facebook marketing and stuff like that. It's pretty easy to get in and actually see what you're doing with your marketing. It just
Hmm.
you got to put in the time, I guess, is the easiest way of saying it. And that's where the difficulty comes in, is that if you don't know what you're doing, it can be really difficult. But if you have some good luck and a $50 ad spend, you'll do okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I would agree with that. Alrighty, well, Maggie, I had a lot of fun. Definitely learned a lot today, and Nathan probably learned a lot more.
I learned a whole bunch.
Nice
Yeah,
chatting with you guys.
Yeah, if
that
people
was a lot of fun.
if people wanted to check out North Star Games or Evolution or anything like that, what's the website or social media that they can follow, things like that?
Yeah, so our website is digital.northstargames.com, and all of our social media, on Facebook, I believe we're Evolution by North Star Games. On Twitter, we're NSG_digital, and I think it's the same on Instagram. But our website's the easiest place to go to find all those links. And we also
Alrighty.
have a super great
Very
Discord
nice.
community. There's some people in there who aren't beta testers, who are just there for the game updates and talking about the game. So that's a good place to get in on the action too.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll put all that in the show notes. and then I would like one of those Discord invites afterwards. But anyway, guys, we will see you guys next week.
Goodbye.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and even if you didn't, we would love to hear your feedback, which can be sent to coldonepodcast@gmail.com or leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us gauge how we can make this podcast better for your enjoyment. If you would like to contact us, you can do that through our email or follow us on social media, which is @Cold1Podcast for Twitter and Facebook. We are now on Spotify as well as most podcast apps in existence, but if you prefer to listen to it online, head on over to our website, actionsperminute.net, for the latest episodes, a link to the APM Network Discord, or to check out any of our APM sponsored streamers. And lastly, if you like what we do, tell your friends and spread the good word. Thank you again, and remember, don't drink and drive.